The Brute is your frontline warrior, taking hits and dishing them out in equal measure. With careful use of defensive and push abilities along with some decent attacks, the Brute can be an effective force on the battlefield, but mastering these abilities can take time. In this video, we're going to cover the Brute's role in the party, and then delve into his level 1 and X cards. This will be the first in a series of 6 videos covering the starting classes, and as we get closer to the Switch and console release, we'll go deeper into each of these along with uncovering the unlockable classes as well. So grab a drink, maybe a snack, and let's jump in. As I said, the Brute is a frontline fighter. He starts out with 10 health, which is what I like to refer to as tank health, since all characters who start with 10 health can tank fairly well. He only has a hand size of 10 though, which hinders his tanking somewhat since he has less cards to negate damage should the need arise. That said, he is a good early tank when played well and equipped properly. He has a few defensive abilities that allow him to take some extra hits, along with some control abilities to prevent enemy attacks. On offense, he has several strong attacks and even some multi-target attacks as well. In general, the Brute does well in one-on-one fights or taking a hit or two to protect other mercs, but a pincushion he is not. As is true for all classes, you should generally avoid unnecessary hits by retreating if need be, or preparing properly with some shield abilities while the other mercs move in to attack. With that said, let's move over to the cards now and delve in a little deeper. Trample is the first card with a decent top action with a good attack 3 with Pierce 2. Attack 3 is a decent attack value throughout the game, and Pierce 2 allows this attack to ignore up to 2 points of armor on an enemy, which is extremely useful when facing shielded enemies. The bottom of the card is a move 4 with jump, and you get to attack every enemy you move through for 2 and get 2 XP. This is a loss ability, meaning you lose this card for the rest of the scenario after it is played, but in the right situation this can be a powerful play. Imagine using this to finish off 3 weakened enemies and then using the top action of your other card to finish off a 4th enemy. The jump on this card means that you can move through obstacles, enemies, and traps unaffected, which makes it an option for getting at ranged enemies behind obstacles too. The initiative on this card is a decent number for going late if you want to draw enemies into a retaliate or attack ability. Speaking of retaliate, Eye for an Eye is our first retaliate ability. Retaliate is an ability that forces an enemy to suffer damage when they attack us in melee. In this case, they would suffer 2 damage, and Brute would gain 1 XP each time an enemy suffers this damage. This particular ability will only last for the round in which it was activated, so we'd want to play this one early, and it can actually pair well with the bottom of Shield Bash, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The bottom of this card is a decent little pick-me-up with a heal 2 range 1 that also activates the earth element. As a tank, it's nice to have some heals, even if it's just a heal 2, and of course since it has a range of 1, we could use this on an adjacent ally as well. Activating Earth here won't help the Brute, but if you're playing with a Cragheart or Spellweaver in your party, they can benefit from the element for sure. The initiative is a nice 18, meaning we should be able to beat most monsters with it. Next up we have Sweeping Blow. The top of this card is an attack 2 on up to 3 enemies. When you see a pattern like this, it means that your character has to be in the gray hex, with the enemies being located in the red hexes. So with this attack, you can only hit enemies in the 3 spaces in front of you. If you can pull this one off where you can actually hit 3 enemies, the attack 2 isn't too bad. But hitting only 1 or even 2 just isn't very good, making this attack a little more situational. The bottom of the card is a move 3 and push 1 targeting all adjacent enemies. This too can be situational. The move 3 is better than a base 2, and the push can be great if you can shove enemies into nearby traps. Of course, you have to have the traps nearby, otherwise this could be underwhelming. We'll find that a lot of cards will be situational though, so this doesn't automatically mean a card is bad, just that it might take some extra planning to use them effectively. The initiative here is not great at 64. Anything less than 70 will have a hard time going after monsters consistently. Provoking Roar Top is an attack 2 and disarm, which is actually really strong, especially when tanking for a round. Disarm will prevent the enemy from being able to attack for a turn and thus reduce the incoming damage to the Brute. Plus, we get attack 2 out of it as a bonus. The great part about status effects is that they still get applied even if our attack does no damage or we pull a miss card. So I often look at these low attack value status inflicting abilities as mainly there to give the status, and any damage done is just a bonus. The bottom of the card allows us to take the damage for any adjacent allies. Any attack on them is performed like it was made on us instead. This ability isn't too great at level 1 as we don't have enough damage mitigation yet, but can be really useful later on. The initiative at 10 is great for going early and will beat almost everything else out there. This next card can be great for taking out low level enemies quickly, though at a cost. Overwhelming Assault Top is an attack 6 with 2 XP, but it is a loss ability. Personally, I like to save this one for a particularly annoying enemy or for the end of the scenario. At lower levels, this attack can take out some enemies all on its own, making it very useful, but it will become less useful at higher levels due to the fact that it is a loss card. The bottom of the card is a pretty useful move 3 push 2 on one adjacent enemy. The push 2 gives us some more range, making it easier to push an enemy onto a trap or even out of range if they only have a move of 1. Initiative wise, we have a 61, which is pretty not useful. You probably won't ever use this card for its initiative value. Next we have Grab and Go. The top is a loot 1, which allows us to loot all tiles adjacent to us, which is actually pretty good when it comes to loot cards since this is a top ability. With this we could move and then loot, whereas most loot abilities are bottoms, meaning it can take 2 turns to get into position. The bottom is a move 4, which is probably the main reason to keep this one in your hand. At level 1, this is the Brute's only move higher than 3 that isn't a loss card. The initiative is an 87, which is great for going late. Maybe you let the enemy move first and get into range, and then you use this to move up and get a free attack off, then go early next round with a Retaliate and Shield ability. Planning ahead is a big part of this game. Okay, our first defensive card is Warding Strength. The top is a solid attack 3 with a push 2, making this a super effective attack if there's a trap nearby to push the enemy into. The bottom has our defensive ability with a shield 1 for the next 6 attacks that damage us. This is a loss card, but it is also an active ability, meaning it will stay active until all its charges are used up. This card will prevent 6 damage to us over its lifetime, as every attack that does damage will be reduced by 1. Since this is a loss card though, it may be better to wait until after the Brute's first rest before using it, as this can help with extending his playtime. The initiative is a 32, which is just meh. It's somewhat early, but not early enough to guarantee going before anything else. Next up we have Shield Bash, another defensive card. So the top is an attack 4 with stun. This is a loss, but stun is the most powerful control effect as the enemy will be unable to act at all on its next turn, and an attack 4 is a strong attack. This is another great play toward the end of a scenario to help clear the last room or to stop a particularly nasty attack from an enemy. The bottom of Shield Bash gives us a shield of 1 for the round, which pairs really well with Eye for an Eye as I mentioned earlier, because you can reduce incoming damage while still doing damage at the same time. This also works well anytime you just need to hold a position. The initiative is a 15, meaning we should be able to go pretty early with this one and get the shield on before we get attacked. Moving on now to Leaping Cleave, the top action here is an attack 3 on the 2 spaces in front of us and gives us 1 XP. This is a pretty useful all-around attack, as an attack 3 is good even if we only use it on 1 target, but if we can hit 2 targets with it, it becomes a lot better, dealing 6 total base damage between the 2 enemies. The bottom is a great move 3 with jump and activates wind. The bottom will be great for getting into position behind enemies or avoiding traps and obstacles. The initiative is crap at 54, but otherwise an all-around pretty useful and flexible card. This next card, Spare Dagger, is the Brute's only ranged attack at level 1. With attack 3 and range 3, it's actually a pretty strong ranged attack, and it gives us 1 XP. The bottom is actually an attack 2, which makes this a great card for some burst damage when you are already adjacent to an enemy. You can use the top attack of another card, and then the bottom attack on this one to attack twice in the same turn, which is very powerful in Gloomhaven in general. The initiative is somewhat lacking at 27, meaning it's not great for going early, but it might get the job done against some slower monsters. That's it for the level 1 cards, but we have 3 level X cards. These cards are here to give us a few options at level 1, but are generally a little more situational and difficult to use. So let's start off with Skewer. Skewer has an awesome top if you can pull it off effectively. An attack 3 targeting 2 enemies in a line with 1 XP and an additional attack 1 and pierce 1 added if we have wind to consume. This can be a great move to take out 2 shielded enemies, or at least damage them pretty good, but getting them to line up like this and then having wind isn't going to happen often. The Brute can prep wind on the turn before with Leaping Cleave bottom, but there is no guarantee the enemies will still be lined up the next turn, as an element doesn't get infused until the end of the infusing character's turn. You'll probably use this card more often on a single target, but even still, if you can consume wind, an attack 4, pierce 1 on one target is still really good. The bottom of Skewer is a move 6, gain 1 XP loss card. I would rarely ever use this card for the bottom, as it's just not worth giving up the top of this card for a move 6. In a minute, we'll talk about the level 1 items to load the Brute out with, and you'll see why this move 6 is meh. The initiative 2 is meh at 35. Next is Balanced Measure. Now, I actually used this one quite a bit in my playthrough of the board game version because of the top. The top is an attack where the value of the attack is determined by how many hexes you moved first. Played well, this can get you an attack of 4, 5, 6, or better, and 1 XP. The bottom is a move where the value of the move is how much damage you've inflicted this turn. I found this side of the card less useful, but planned out right, it could get a pretty high move value. With Initiative 77, this card should allow you to go later than most enemies most turns. Finally, we have Wall of Doom. The top gives us Retaliate 2 and Shield 2 for 1 round and 2 XP, but it's a loss card. The top is pretty situational, as you'll want to be taking a lot of hits to make this worth it, probably something like 4 or more. That would result in at least 8 damage to enemies, and with a Shield 2, you'll probably take only 3 to 5 points of damage depending on the enemies. The bottom will add +1 attack to all your attacks for the round, and is not a loss. This can be good when you're already in position, and can use one of your area attacks to hit multiple enemies, but again, this can be very situational. Alright, let's talk about starting items. The Brute should definitely take the Heater Shield and a health potion to get started. This will help him with tanking hits and lasting longer in the scenario. The next pickup should be the Boots of Striding. These will allow the Brute to add +2 move to 1 move ability every long rest. This will help him keep up with the more mobile mercs and increase the damage of Balanced Measure if you're using it. Next is Hide Armor, once you've grabbed the perk to make the Brute immune to negative item effects, because Hide Armor will add 2 -1 attack modifiers otherwise. As far as the head and second hand item, these are less clear cut and more or less up to personal preference. If you plan on Brute getting hit a lot, then the Iron Helm might be a good choice to cancel crits, but the Eagle Eye Goggles could be good for his area attacks or his lost card attacks to prevent them from being negated by a miss, since the Eagle Eye Goggles give you advantage. For the second hand item, the only viable one while using a shield is the Poison Dagger, since the other 2 hand items are 2-handed items. That said, if you want to forego the shield, the Warhammer could be useful during an AoE attack, but personally, I think the Brute is better off with the shield, especially at level 1. With the right items and setup, the Brute can make an excellent early tank, but he will be eclipsed by other tanks later on. On the other hand, he could make an excellent backup tank to one of those later classes due to his decent damage output. However you choose to use him, I think the Brute is a fun, easy class to start with, though I may be biased here as he was the first character I used when I first started playing Gloomhaven. Please give me a like if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments or just chat about Gloomhaven in general. If you'd like a more general overview of Gloomhaven, check out this video I made for you. Also, I've begun streaming Gloomhaven Digital on the channel on Saturdays starting at noon if you're interested. But for now, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and keep on gaming.